G'day whiskey lovers, welcome to the Hard Malt channel. My name's Tim and here I am with my cup of tea here today. But don't despair, there will be whiskies featured in this video. I thought I'd offer my perspective on a topic that has been covered by some of the different whiskey tubers out there, some of the more established ones such as Ralphie on the Whiskey Bothy and Roy on Aquavitae. And that topic is bottle fill levels and how you store them. Should you be concerned about how long you keep them? How long will they be good for? That kind of thing. So I thought I'd offer my personal perspective on this topic, just to give you guys some more points of reference as to how people store their whiskey, how many bottles people have open, and that kind of thing. So just to start, full disclosure, in my cabinet at the moment I have 65 bottles with 4 bottles in transit. So if we say 69 bottles total, and out of those 46 of those are open at various stages of disrepair, shall we say. Now that's well over half are opened, which some people might get a little bit nervous about. For me, not so much. Pretty much all of the bottles in my cabinet these days are 46% plus, which generally means they're going to be non-chill filtered whiskies. Why do I feel that makes a difference? Well, the higher the alcohol, the longer it's going to be able to keep its strength, retain its flavours, even with a bit of oxidisation happening in the bottle. Whereas at the lower end, if I had bottles at 40% or 43%, I'll probably expect not to be able to hang on to them for as long as I can the other bottles of higher strength. So just to give you some example of some of the bottles that I do have open and what level they're at. Here we have Arblauer Abona. This is batch 75. Yes, 75. This is 60.9%. Now I've had this bottle for well over 2 years now. I believe this came out in 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Chuck it in the comments there if you know the exact release date of this batch. As you can see, it's below half, but not quite down to 1/3, I wouldn't think. And I have had a taste of this kind of recently, probably in the last 2 months, I'd say, and it's still as good as when I first opened it. The reason why I haven't polished it off yet is, for me, this is much more a winter style whiskey, and it's early March here in Australia, so we're still on the dregs of summer, if you will, and having quite a heat wave here this weekend. So I won't be getting stuck into this one this weekend. Much more of a winter jam for me. But if I hang on to this for another year or two, I've got no concerns whatsoever. I can't see this losing any of its flavour or developing any bad notes at all. So there's that one. Now, something that I believe I would have had for about 18 months, could be wrong, but I think it's around there. This is Glendronach Cask Strength Batch 12. This one is bottled at 58.2%, and as you can see there, it's pretty low in the bottle there. But again, this is one that I think I sampled a bit of this just before Christmas time, or around Christmas time last year. Because Glendronach, for me, it's one of those whiskies that always seems to remind me of Christmas. It's got that flavour profile, and I may not even finish this until next Christmas. Who knows? But again, even at that level, I'm not concerned about that sitting in the cabinet for another year. not at all. When I did taste this, it still I had all the memories of when I first opened it. All the flavours are still just as potent, just as strong, and it's a lovely whiskey too. A couple more examples for you is I have this independent bottling of a Highland Park 16-year-old, matured in a ex-bourbon hogshead. This is brought out by Anchor independent bottler for the whisky list, and this is bottled at 53.8%, and this one I have sampled much more recently, being an ex-bourbon style whisky. It's perfect for the summer months for me, and again, this is it's below half now, but I'll be sort of nursing this one because it's really enjoyable, and I want to hang on to it for as long as I can, and share it with other people as well. So yeah, there's that one, and a more recent one that I finished off is a bottle of Lafroy Law, which is 48%. So this is the lowest of the ABV options that I've presented here today, and this one was down to just below the label recently, and it had been sitting there for probably up to a year, and I'd had the bottle for probably up to a year before that. So all up, I've probably had this bottle in the cabinet for about 2 years, and for a year of that was at a very low level in the bottle, and you know what, it still tasted perfect when I finished it off. Not a problem. So just goes to show that you don't really, as long as you're storing your whiskey properly in a cabinet, out of sunlight, keep it cool. So don't put it in a cabinet right in front of a heater or anything like that. Not that I think anybody would, but yeah, as long as you're storing it properly, store them upright. Some people like to open their cabinet every 3 months and turn the bottles just to wet the cork. I used to do that, not so much anymore. I haven't noticed any difference, to be honest, whether I was wetting the cork or not. So, as I said, as long as you're storing your whiskey properly, it should be a non-issue. Now, the other thing I will note is I've even got something a little bit more precious here, a Longrey 21. Now, people who have had this whiskey or know how hard it is to get, this one I actually brought back with me from the Springbank shop in Campbelltown, Scotland. That's the only reason I managed to get my hands on it, and I'll be nursing this one. I'm not down to half yet, but I've got no concerns about hanging on to this for 2 or 3 years, as long as I can, because it's just it's a gorgeous whiskey. Obviously it's a little more on the funky side, being a Campbelltown one from Springbank. When you're in the mood for that, this is just really hits the spot. Just gorgeous whiskey, and can only see it getting better as it's been opened. And speaking of that, sometimes that oxidization in the bottle can actually be your friend. A lot of whiskies, I find, if anything, they will actually start to get a bit better once you get down past the bulge. And this probably relates to what a lot of people talk about when they speak of a neck pour, which is when you've just opened the bottle and the fill line was up here, and they've poured a glass, and they describe it as being a neck pour, and they preface that as saying that the notes they might pick up then may not resemble the whiskey fully, because a lot of people say that with the neck pour the whiskey is still too compacted and tight. The flavours don't quite release. I tend to agree that that does happen with a lot of whiskies, not all whiskies. Some whiskies seem to be the same from the neck pour all the way down to the bottom of the bottle, whereas others seem to be very tight and don't give you all their secrets and all their flavours from that neck pour. So if you have that first dram or first 2 drams and then put the lid back on, chuck it in the cabinet and come back to it in a couple of weeks to a couple of months, you'll find it's opened up and it's an entirely different beast. I find that with quite a lot of whiskies do that for me. Probably the whiskies on at the lower end of ABV, say 46%, 48%, not so much. For me, I think it's the higher percent ones will tend to change a little bit once you've got rid of the neck pour. Having said that, I have had whiskies that are chill filtered. For example, Glengoyne 18, which was either 40% or 43%. I can't quite remember. I think it was 43%. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But it was definitely lower than 46%. It was chill filtered. Don't know, can't recall if it was natural colour. That's beside the point. That Glengoyne 18, when I first opened it, that was really tight and complex, or condensed, sorry. It almost tasted like an amaretto first off. Now, amaretto, for those who don't know that name, is a liqueur, almond flavoured liqueur. So that Glengoyne, when I first opened it, the Glengoyne 18-year-old, it tasted almost like that almond liqueur amaretto, which wasn't quite what I wanted. So I put the lid back on, I finished my glass, put the lid back on, put the bottle back in the cabinet, and I didn't touch it for maybe 3 months. 3 months later I brought it out, and that amaretto, strong amaretto note had started to tone down, and I was starting to get more of the whiskey flavour, the sherry notes, and a bit more of the flavour of that whiskey. That bottle continued to improve as the level went down further and further, to the point that when I had about that much left, so a little bit over a third, that for me was the best that bottle ever was. The almond notes were still there, but it really showed the fruitcake characters as well, and I described it to a few mates as being liquid wedding cake. That's how good it was. It was just delicious. That last third and a bit of the bottle was just sensational. That is probably an exception to my experience, in that was a chill filtered bottle, a lower ABV whiskey, and it really improved as it got down to the last third of the bottle. Most of the time I will find that chill filtered whiskies and low ABV, I wouldn't say they get worse, but they just become flat, and the flavours don't really jump up for you anymore. The flavours just sort of go very flat and a little bit lost. So it's not to say that they become terrible whiskies, but they're no longer good whiskies. Whereas whiskies over 46% and above ABV, for me, I find I can hang on to them for as long as I like, and I've never had one really deteriorate badly or anything like that. If anything, as I said, most of them tend to just keep getting better and better as the bottle goes. So the other thing I'll note is with my 46 bottles open, or as I said, at various stages of disrepair, that's well over half of my collection as it stands at the moment. Why that is because I like to share my whiskey with different mates that pop over, Some will pop over for a whiskey night, and we'll line up a bit of a whiskey paddle and go through a few different flavours and see what we can pick out. And the benefit of sharing whiskey with mates is that, like-minded whiskey mates, is that you can bounce notes off each other. If there's some particular flavour note that you're picking up in a whiskey that you know the note is there, but you're not sure how to describe it, if you're sharing it with a mate or a couple of mates, then one of them might pick up that note and be able to articulate what it is, and then you go, yes, that's what it is, and then that goes back in your memory. So next time you come across that note, you'll know exactly what that flavour is, and be able to describe it next time you come across it. And not just sharing notes, but in general, it's just more fun with more people to share a dram or two. And not to mention, when I do share drams around, and if one of my mates really enjoys something, I'll send them home with a little sample bottle. Why not? Just something that when the mood strikes them, they go, you know what, I'd really like to have a wee dram of that whiskey I had at Tim's place last month. You can pull out the sample and away you go. So there you have it, folks. That's my take on whiskey fill levels or bottle fill levels, and how long you can keep them. If you enjoy this kind of content, please give us a like. Be keen to see your opinions in the comments as well. Everybody else has different experiences. Always good to share them. And until next time, see you in the next one. Slán tu